jamaa kwa iweka hata bob 1 shilling. Even the day he was named running mate, asubuhi alikuwa anaamka, anapata ndege na doi iko hapo. Yeye anaenda anaongea, anarudi. Hiyo ndege italipwa na nani? Hajui. Hii pesa imetoka wapi? Hajui. Baka kampeni kaisha. Unajua yeye alikuwa na ka one line na kingine kazuri sana. Mlikuwa hata mkienda kunywa chai mahali tu anakuambia, "Hey, senator utalipa hii bill." Unajua mimi anakuambia unajua sikia, anakuambia unajua mimi ningelipa lakini Uhuru amefunga account. Yaani so unajua baba yake yeye anaenda mkutano anaongea Kisapere, alafu anauliza kwa nini mkutano ni Wasapere peke yake? Kwa hivyo ni kumaanisha hapa America ni Wasapere peke yake wako. Yaani ujinga ule jamaa inanga boundary.
It is extremely dangerous because you see, as a country, there is where we have gotten to. There are things we are not supposed to be doing today. Today, the conversation of this country, we should be angling our conversations on how do we move the country forward. What is this that we can do to be able to have a better Kenya?
Anybody listening to him, anafaa jiulize, kwa nini akiwa upande anasema hivi, akiwa upande mwingine anasema hivi. He's not sincere in whatever he's doing. You know, you cannot call yourself a truthful man na uko na 2 sets of truths. Tutafaa kumweka sasa ligi ya bloggers pia.
When people don't have substantive issues to discuss, they will pull you towards their strength. Some of these political leaders that we have, their biggest strength is anchored on tribalism and mediocrity.
Chaufala. Jaribu bana. Hii kitu hakuna kitu ngumu. So tukakaa na marafiki kidogo hapa na pale. We put together some very little resources ya kufanya to the basics, which is just to fuel a car na posters hapa na pale. Then you move around na unaongelesha watu. But of course I knew the county. I had worked previously in the previous election of 2012 as a campaign manager for a guy who was running to be governor. So I knew the terrain fairly well. I had studied. As I was working as his campaign manager, I was doing it actually knowing that one day I may give this a try. It was not in the immediate. I was thinking maybe like 2022, like 10 years afterwards. So nilikuwa najua county yangu vizuri and the things that were possible and that which was not possible. So ni replicate to what we had done, but now made adjustments, especially learning from the errors zenye tulimake kwa campaign yao jamaa, because he never made it to be governor. We lost to our former governor, ule Paul Chepkwony. But there are many things nilikuwa nimelearn through campaign. Naona hapa kufanya hivi haiwezekani, kufanya hivi utafaulu. So I gave it a try. Things opened up. Tukaingia Senate. Of course, you learn. The first Senate had very big political giants, guys that I had been watching since my childhood. There was Akina Gigi Karaoke, who had served in President Kenyatta, the first cabinet. Kina James Orengo, Kiraitu Murungi, Ali Chiaba, people who I used to read about only and watch on telly. Now we're colleagues and unawaangalia. So you take time, you study, unaona vile wana debate, how they handle issues, you interact with them. So naweza sema those first 2 years that I served in that Senate ndio imenisaidia now in the subsequent terms of parliament, even up to now as leader of majority, because ni kama nilipata training in the best institution. When you get a chance to work with the who's who, very senior people who had served in everything. Imagine from Kenyatta's government to people who had been in Moi's government to people who are in Kibaki's, you know. There was an array of all these guys, including young guys also, like the SGU UDA, Hassan Omar was also there, but he was also now learning the ropes, though he had been to Senate 2 years earlier than myself and the rest of my colleagues. There were younger colleagues also who this was their first time being in parliament. So we just got along, but those 2 years prepared me sufficiently now for the latter years, because now the day they exited after the 2017 elections, many of them didn't either contest or they chose to do other things, to run for governor and things like that. So hiyo ndio ilinipatia training na ndio imenisaidia to always keep the focus, know what devolution is about. Our primary role kama Senate ni kuprotect interest ya counties. That's why unaonanga tunakuanga na fight sana between us and the National Assembly. We don't understand them and they also don't understand us. Because tunaona nikaa hao wana live world tofauti. How I believe kwamba counties zinafaa thrive. Sisi, our view from the first time I got into the Senate up to now, mi naona counties ni a very good opportunity for us to continue decentralizing power. Ndio hii fight ina kuanga Kenya isikue sana. So nakumbuka 2010 constitution came after the post-election violence of 2007. The fight to try and be the manager and dictate how the national resources are shared. Unaona? And devolution came as an antidote. Watu walikuwa wanasema tusikue tu na one center of power. Let's try and take it to 47 different places. We can argue, was it enough? Can we reduce? Mi naona hiyo ni upuzi. We will never be able to roll back. There is no way anybody will ever accept us to be back to a unitary government na also to reduce the counties. Hiyo haiwezekani. Hata hii conversation nyingine watu wanasemanga saa nyingine ya kusema maybe we redraw the boundaries. Hata hiyo ni very controversial. It's very difficult because nani atakubali kuachilia certain section, nani atakubali kuongezwa kwingine.
How are the boundaries of the current counties established?
The boundaries hazikufuata pia any scientific process. So basically what happened in Bomas, wakati watu walibishana, kulikuwa na fight. President Mwai Kibaki was against devolution. Yeye alikuwa centralist. Au alikuwa na insist. In fact, he used to ask, if you followed the conversation, I was a university student then. So I used to follow a lot because I have a lot of interest in politics. I was active in student politics even that time. Yeye alikuwa anauliza ati kuna mtu anaitwa governor, to govern what? That is the most infamous quote ya Kibaki. Then kulikuwa na hii team nyingine ya kina Raila and Raila, Ruto and the team ni kama hii team ya ODMs at that time. Then they were pro devolution. And they also wanted a parliamentary system. Unaona? Hawa walikuwa wanataka unitary system in a presidential system. Hii team ingine ya kina Kibaki. So kukakuwa na hiyo push and pull mpaka kukatokea compromise. Akisema basi tukue na counties devolution but without parliamentary system, ikuwe presidential. So kubaki na president alafu a certain percentage of resources ndio inaenda counties. So then kukatokea hizo wale umeuliza, hizo counties zitapatikanaje? Wakisema tupeane 2 districts, whatever exists as a district boundary. At that time, the districts that were there were 47. Hizo district ndio zilikonvertiwa zikakuwa counties. The only county yenye ilisuffer misfortune, no, actually the district as at 1992. Unanipata? So the only county, the county that never became yet it was supposed to be a county, ni Mwingi County. Because at that time, they had been declared a district actually, to be Mwingi district, but somehow, ni kama either it had not been gazetted or something. These are things I came to learn later, last year when we were doing the NADCO process. Nakumbuka ile process ya NADCO. And many people came doing presentations, and the people of Mwingi came before us actually with that presentation and said, Manze Amos wako alituacha nje ya gazettement because he was the AG. Otherwise they were supposed to be, the counties were supposed to be 48. So if there are people who have a genuine case kabisa ya ukweli, ni Mwingi, the people of Mwingi. But the rest ni very complex. So that's how it ended up being 47. So to say that ati tutawairudi nyuma ama mbele is a very difficult conversation. So lazima to find way ya vile zita work as they are. Yeah.
Asante sana Senator. Kama kuna kitu moja nimeenda kama yangu, as a young person in politics, ni know the terrain.
Yeah.
Jua terrain ya county yako.
Yeah.
Higgins, sana nataka to dive into today's topic. Kuna mtu aitwa Rigathi Gachagua, amekuwa akizunguka US. Na anasema ati when you destroy Kikuyu community, you destroy Kenya. That specific community is the driver of Kenya's economy. Ini statement unakubaliana nayo ama unaipinga?
Mimi naipinga kabisa. In this sense, leaders should be cautious with their words because they can either make a nation or break a nation. Kenya economy is driven by all of us combined. There's no way KRA can measure this tax come from a Kikuyu, this tax come from a Luo, this tax come from a Kalenjin. There's no system to measure that. And you find most taxes that are attributed to, say, Nairobi, you cannot measure it to Nairobi. Because Safaricom ikikuzia hata Wajia, ikideclare profit Nairobi, hiyo ushuru yake inaekwa Nairobi. So it's a very complex thing to trivialize such conversation. I think it's a tribal bait. He wants to bait his community to be able to consolidate his power.
Advice. Yeah. Let me come into you.
Yes.
Kindly advise the nation. What is what is the
That's a good
danger-
one,
Mudalo, what is the danger of economic commentary that takes a tribal balkanization?
It is extremely dangerous, because you see, as a country, there is where we have gotten to. There are things we are not supposed to be doing today. Today, the conversation of this country, we should be angling our conversations on how do we move the country forward. What is this that we can do to be able to have a better Kenya today? Taking us back to a tribal conversation is taking this country very many years back. There's something that was achieved with the 2022 election. Despite the fact that the tribal card still played out, but it was a heavily agenda-based election. And from there, we were supposed to move forward, going forward. So when we have a situation where a leader, a former deputy president of a country, can actually make such statements, it is supposed to be so gross that we should actually be having parliament and Kina Senator here summoning such a leader to really be able to take account of why they need to make such sentiments. But unfortunately for us, we like thinking politically. So such a thing will be able to just give someone political mileage. But it is extremely wrong that we think in that line. Our diversity as a country is our strength. Me, I come from Western Kenya, and we grow maize and we supply sugar to this country. The people of Luo Nyanza have something that they can be able to offer. The people of Ukambani have something that they can be able to offer. So it is very dangerous for a leader to actually start having a conversation, not just on ethnicity, but taking it down from just mere ethnicity to the economics of the country. I think, of course, I understand that Rigathi is really trying to consolidate his Mount Kenya base, and he is really trying to play politics with it, because I think he has just taken the reason why he was impeached, and now he has just ballooned it better to prove to everybody that that is actually who he can be, so that he can be able to build his tribal numbers. But it should not be at the detriment of the rest of Kenya. We should not be able to take our politics that direction. It's even worse that he said it from a foreign country, where he should be able to be engaging those people to see who can be able to come and invest in Kenya, who can be able to, what are the relations that we can have between Kenya and those countries? How did those people get there? Can we be able to take more young people in Kenya to even get some jobs that direction? Because we are grappling with unemployment and many other issues. So saying such a thing, and it does not only affect us as a conversation, but you see, when you serve at a level of a deputy president, it doesn't matter how we look at you as Kenyans. You are on a global scale. So sometimes we need to understand that when somebody says that and he served at such a level, the world thinks that's how all of us think. Because he's the one who is on the global platform. That's why it's important that leaders do the right thing, because they represent all of us. When Senator here says something, because he's a senator and he's young, and the global stage will meet his name more than it will meet mine. So what he says represents me too. So when the former deputy president says that, somebody out there really thinks that all of us as Kenyans, that is exactly how our politics is, and that is how we are. So we must all actually condemn it in the strongest terms possible.
Senator Aaron, you just brought to light that the document we hold so dear, Constitution of Kenya 2010, was a document that was supposed to bring in a level of social cohesion and to heal the nation from ethnic balkanization. My question is, Rigathi akisema vitu kama hizi, how should we as a nation respond to such comments?
Unajua sasa shida ni tools za accountability ndio probably we don't have in this sense. Parliament yenye advice anasema inafaa kumsummon na haiwezi msummon. Kwa nini? Because you already impeached him. To us, he is not somebody fit to hold public office. That's what an impeachment means. So as it stands to Parliament, that man will never serve in any public office in this country. So the things he's saying should now be measured along the lines of what a blogger, mtu anaweza sema anapiga story hapo. But either way, any citizen, kitu yoyote yenye anasema should be within the confines of the law. Kama mtu ana spread division ama hate, NCIC, that is their job. But unakumbuka NCIC ilimsummon. Hizi vitu anasema hajaanza kusemea huko. Hata akiwa hapa home alikuwa anasema. When NCIC summoned him, he never honored the summons. I don't know your story ilifikia wapi. Because normally, when you're summoned by a statutory institution such as that, and you fail to honor summons, it is a criminal offense. Tukiandikanga sheria, tunawekanga what are the countermeasures if somebody was to ignore. Let's say today, the court summons you. Kuambia Denzel, kwa show yako ulisema kitu fulani hivi, unafaa kuja hapa upatiane witness ama testimony. Ukatae. You're normally now the issue an arrest warrant against you because you are defying a legal body that has the force of law. NCIC have that force, but they have delayed for too long. By the way, we should really be concerned as a country. Imefika pahali, there are certain leaders, wale wako bankrupt of ideas, wanauza hii kitu ya hate against other communities sana. I think I see it mostly with him. I see it with Ujama wa Trans Nzoia, you know, Natembea, and a few other guys. People who, when they speak in public, they openly, unajua tunafaa kuwa a very cohesive society. Nowadays, as we speak, hakuna community yaishi kwa different parts of the country. Today, in my county where I come from, in Kericho, they are all the 47 tribes. Kuna Wahindi, kuna Wajaluo, kuna Wakikuyu. Kenya has moved on. And Kenya has gotten to a point where every community lives with each other. Siku hizi hata unapata mtu ananunua shamba. A guy comes from Kisii, buys land in Kericho, right in the village. Na anaishi tu na watu and it's fine. That is what 2010 constitution expected of us. But we are really being pulled back na watu kama sasa, jamaa unasema. Because with their kind of rhetoric, you put hate into people's heart. Against, you may think, you know what Gigi doesn't know is that the kind of statements ana make, while they may appear to excite his own people, the counter effect on them also is very little. Because kila anasema ina hurt other Kenyans. Unaona? And you know, not everybody has your level of understanding or mind to know that this is the comment of an individual. Au anaichukulia kwamba this is what a community is saying. So they begin hate against that particular community. Na hivyo ndio hate against communities inaanzanga. It's sparked by people who are supposed to represent a certain thinking because they occupy a place of responsibility. Like a former deputy president. Hata kama hata why run. Udi mtu amewai kuwa leader. The guy has been an MP. Unanipata? So he should behave in a better way. And he should know better. But yeye amesema the end justifies the means. Yeye bora aweze kuconsolidate whatever he can to use it as a negotiation tool for power. Unfortunately, na hata kwa wale wanamsupport, the counter effect ya the things that he's doing will be more of an undoing than a gain to the people that he thinks he's defending. Sa ile Kenya, kila Mkenya ana work hard. Ekonomi ya Kenya kama vile unaambiwa, Kenya National Bureau of Statistics measures our economy, including our GDP, by how sectors perform. There is no scientific evidence whatsoever to confirm what he's saying is true. Ukiangalia sahi, what are the leading sectors ambazo, hata based on GDP performance yetu ya last year? Number one, foreign remittances by watu wako diaspora. It's Kenyans from all walks of life that are outside. Unajua baba yake, anaenda mkutano anaongea Kisapere, alafu anauliza kwa nini mkutano ni Wasapere peke yake? Kwa hivyo ni kumaanisha hapa America ni Wasapere peke yake. Yaani ujinga ule jamaa inanga boundary. Unaona?
Guys, I have to ask this question. One, labda for the viewers tuna watch. Explain number one, statutory body ni nini na umekucall for a whip on NCIC. Gonga kwa nini?
Mambo ya NCIC nimeongelea for like 2 years. Because even the time Rigathi alianza hii mambo ya shares, the first time he ever mentioned shares was in a function actually in Kericho. Tulikuwa tumeenda Thanksgiving ya jamaa ameappointiwa as a PS in charge of, that time he was in water. So akiongea pale akasema hizi story. Mimi nikaona hapa he is not intelligent, because vile tumefanya our politics over time, from the time of first term ya Uhuru Kenyatta going into his second term, and even the campaign of William Ruto going now into his current presidency, kuna ka certain caution tunakuanga nayo, always knowing that despite the fact that it is known where the strong base of a leader is, ukiongea kuna realization kwamba there is a broader spectrum, there is a bigger country that you should be speaking out to. So kuna ka certain sensitivity. Unajua, many of us who have grown up in the William Ruto School of Politics, tumelearn public speaking through him. Mara mingi watu wakiongea, sahili tuko kwa public functions na church nini, ukimaliza kuongea you correcting mtu. Kama mara mingi, one of the things he taught me, and you'll never find it in me, even now I struggle. He told me, never mention any tribe by name. At best, mention a region. But yani hata baka wa leo nastukanga kwa speech yangu. Wezi nipata kwa speech ati naongea niseme, nyinyi Wajaluo. Yani kuna kakitu kananiambia, please. Decorum. And it's something that he keeps on insisting and saying, be sensitive to certain things. There's a way itatokea. To the best, tukijaribu say, hata speak of the region. The people from this lakeside, it's a bit more modest. And decent, because it could even include other Kenyans who live in that particular place. Unanipata? It's part of actually Article 10 ya Constitution yetu, national values. So basically, the point why I started calling out NCIC is that at that point, hakuna kitu walisema. Na iliendelea mpaka sasa hiyo vitu ikafika bunge. Na people were feeling so bad. You can imagine, jamaa anaenda pale kama Samburu. Anawaambia nyinyi wa Masai hamkutupigia kura. Ni kweli ama si uongo? Anaenda Kitui anawaambia kura yenu ni chache sana. And I saw their leaders really complaining because it hurts. Hakuna mtu alichagua where to be born. Yeah. But tribe is such an insignificant thing. Watu wangapi wameintamari kwa hii country? Watu wangapi beste zao hata ujui anatoka tribe gani? Very few people kwa your phone book come from your tribe. So basically that conversation ni hao waliallow kufika hapa. In fact, for us to slide to this level where today people are preaching hate against certain communities is because of the inactivity ya NCIC. The problem ni NCIC jaribika sahi. NCIC ilitumiwa vibaya politically last government. Unakumbuka the time walikuwa na ban political terms associated with the then deputy president. Hatupangwingwi nini. That was the beginning of the death of an institution. So when things did not go the way they expected, tayari kwanza walikaa kama wamestuka. Because uko kwa ofisi lakini ujiamini unasema hawa watu wanatuonaje? Because tulikuwa tumewa hit sana. Unaona? So that institution imetuletea shida.
Just to remind our viewers what we always say every time, the presidential oath in the Constitution of the Republic of Kenya does say that he will do justice to all without fear, favor, or ill will. So it's very important that we have a national cohesion in this country. Higgins, to you. Sasa, kwa hiyo speech yake ya majuu, kuna kitu alisema. Alisema ati wanajaribu kufanya ikuwe 41 versus 1, lakini yeye ataifanya ikuwe 70% plus 1. Debunk hiyo. Inamaanisha nini? Mtu labda Gen Z yako hapa anasikiza ile 41 versus 1 ni nini, kutoka wapi? Na hata ile 70% plus 1 ni nini?
That 41 versus 1 played out mostly 2007, where it was perceived ODM strategy was all the communities versus the Kikuyus. And that's what led to something like post-election violence. But tukienda vile inaendelea, I think from last election, we have done better in terms of issue-based politics. Si tulikuwa watu walikuwa na manifesto, wanaongelea policies. Ile maandamano ya kwanza ya Gen Z also walikuwa wanaongelea issues, walikuwa wanaongelea finance bill, taxation, bla bla bla. So tulikuwa tunaendelea in the right direction. Sasa yeye ndo to reset, na vile senator amesema the counter effect ya Kenya anafanya is the one that can bring that 41 versus 1. So yote ni doing yake kuturudisha nyuma. So I think he's not sincere in whatever he's doing. You know, you cannot call yourself a truthful man na uko na two sets of truths. Ukiwa hizi upande, unajua ukweli ni ukweli, haifai kubadilika. Lakini ukiwa kwa serikali, hiyo ni ukweli yako, ukiwa huku nje ni ukweli yako. That's the number one thing ya call out a lie. You can't have two sets of truth. So anybody listening to him anafaa jiulize, kwa nini akiwa upande anasema hivi, akiwa upande mwingine anasema hivyo. Akiwa huko amesema Kikuyus ndio wana run economy na mlima iko na numbers ya kuform government. Akikuja Ukambani anasema sisi wa Kamba ni cousins, akikuja huku ni cousins. So he's speaking from both sides of the mouth. Sasa tumuelewe ako hivi ama ako hivi. Fact vile senator amesema tutafaa kumweka sasa ligi ya bloggers pia. So akisema hivi unachukulia hivi, akisema hivi unachukulia hivyo.
Advice. Let me probably ask you, what message are we sending to the rest of Kenya when at one community controls the economy?
I think first of all, we are not supposed to be allowing that kind of message sink in, because that is how we start sowing the seeds of hate and tribalism, and people starting to be very mad about each other. The anger that the country had last year and partly this year was anchored on some factors of truth, because the anger was non-tribal. The anger was about issues. The anger was about the young people clamoring for and saying the unemployment crisis is crazy. They were saying this finance bill, we want it a certain way. They were saying this is how one the health sector looked at. So it was a conversation around issues. We had actually moved away so much from these issues of tribal conversations. And that's why such platforms are very, very important, that we can be able to use this to actually speak out to the other people, especially the younger people, and insist to them that those are not things we should be able to consume. We should not even debate about it. Those are things, and now I want to really also agree that those are things we can take as a bloggers, comment and forget about it. Because the moment we start paying attention to that, then a young person doing business in Kenya coming from another community starts feeling devalued. A young person who is employing other young people in a TV station, in a podcast studio, starts feeling devalued. There's a gentleman somewhere who is running a studio and he's not from the mountain community, probably is from Rift Valley or Western, and most of his employees are from the mountain region. He suddenly starts feeling like, wait a minute, should I then be employing people from my region and get rid of this? So it will take us to a cliff that we don't want to get to. Let us stick to these issue-based politics, so that we can be able to canvass issues for what they are, so that we run away from this. Remember, people should know that when people don't have substantive issues to discuss, they will pull you towards their strength.
When people don't have substantive
issues to discuss, they will pull you towards their strength. Some of these political leaders that we have, their biggest strength is anchored on tribalism and mediocrity. If you got into office on the basis of tribalism and mediocrity, you will never accept a conversation that takes us away from tribalism and mediocrity, because that is the currency that you used to get in office. And you see, when it's working, they say you don't change the strategy. A strategy that is working, you continue with it. And that's why, despite the fact that Senator Cheriot in the Senate and the Parliament impeached the former deputy president, he does not really think that is a strategy that can fail to work. Because according to him, it is the mobilization of numbers of an ethnic community that got him into office as a deputy president after serving for one term as a member of parliament. You are a member of parliament for one term, then on the basis of this, you are able to become a deputy president. And that's why you must insist that the conversation goes that way. That's why they do not want to really have a conversation around, and I saw the president speak about this, was it yesterday, when he was saying, give us the alternative plan. You cannot replace a plan that is that you don't like with no plan at all. And I think that is the kind of conversation that we must be able to be having as a country. It is about what is the idea Higgins have and what is my idea. Which one serves Kenya better? And for me, it was quite retrogressive when one of Senator Cheriot's colleagues yesterday in a media house anchored the same statement and said, as a country, we don't have a priority on roads. We don't have a priority on healthcare. We don't have a priority on anything. We should not be able to be talking about how we move the country forward, but we should be talking about the term of the president. I found that quite retrogressive, especially coming from a young leader, because we are starting to really anchor as young people the politics where we start canvassing issues, where when I want to run against Senator Cheriot or Governor Sakaja or whoever, I'm providing a better plan. But when young leaders again start disappointing us to tell us that discussing issues is not a priority, I think that becomes extremely retrogressive, and it's worse because it's coming from a young leader. Remember, today we have the youngest government actually. I think since independence. This government that we have today is actually the youngest. We have the youngest president since independence. I think we have the youngest Senate majority leader. So when young leaders start speaking in a manner that does not then portray their age, it becomes quite retrogressive, and it's a direction we must not go.
Advice, Mudalo, the main takeaway I'm having from your speech is that when leaders run out of intellectual brain trust, they stick to that which is their strength.
Exactly.
So when tribalism becomes someone's strength, it's really a red flag.
Exactly, because that is the only thing that they can be able to converse.
Higgins, let's talk about numbers now. At the end of the day, elections is about numbers. There is this theory that Gachagua has that he can summon entire Mount Kenya, and alone with the game, around the game map, they can take over government. Are they the opposition, or are they a government in waiting? Throw the numbers.
So Mount Kenya alone, or what do you mean?
As his base is.
That cannot be the truth. You know, we have the census data, even broken down into tribal numbers. Number one is Kikuyu, I think at 17%, followed by Luyas at 14, Kalenjins at 13 point something, and that. So if you want to add Mulima, maybe Meru comes second at 4%, Embu, Tharaka, 0.5. So at most in their population number, maybe they will go to 22% of the nation. So there's another 78% outside Mulima. So I don't think Mulima is the nation.
That's true.
Yes.
It cannot be the nation.
Yes.
Senator, coming to you, if Mount Kenya walks out of the Ruto coalition, does he lose 2027?
First of all, unajua kuna vitu mingi nataka kusema.
Shoot.
Nimeshindwa nianzie wapi.
Karibu anza.
Because
shoot.
There are so many assumptions that you guys are getting it wrong.
Okay.
Number one, nani amekwambia ule jamaa anaongea on behalf of every voter?
By the way, hayuko hivyo.
Nani amekwambia?
Hayuko hivyo.
Are you aware that even last election, even when there appeared to be a very strong wave in Mount Kenya in support of UDA, Raila secured still 1 million plus votes from that particular region.
That's a lot.
That's a very liberated community.
Very.
So it is a fallacy to imagine that he commands such a following.
That's true.
Number two, it is one thing for people to listen to you when you speak. Sasa unaongea watu wanasema yeye kweli anasema. It is another thing altogether for you to show them a plan that they can buy into and say, wacha tupige kura vile so and so ametuambia. Ndio tutafaulu. The minute it becomes apparent and clear, as it soon will, that Rigiji is herding the people who follow him straight into a ditch, watu watadesert hiyo gari mbaya sana. Because the guy has no plan. Unajua, huyu ni graduate wa William Ruto School of Politics. Tulikuwa nao class 2017 to 2022. I can tell you, he was among the daftest kwa hiyo class yetu. So hakuna vile ati all of a sudden amejua kupanga siasa. Si tulikuwa tunakaa wote Karen hapo tunapanga vitu. Kwanza mara mingi
unajua kuna tabia fulani kuna minister nilikuwa na watch podcast nyingine hapo akasema huyu mtu hizi vitu anapiga sahi na alipitisha kwa subcommittee yake ya cabinet ni juu cabinet ikiendelea alikuwa anakanga kwa simu akiwa kwa Facebook. That ukiangalia records za cabinet for 2 years akiwa ndani, the guy never spoke more than 2 times in the entire 2 years ya cabinet.
Goja. In the 2 years he was deputy,
He never spoke more than twice in cabinet. Jamaa alikuwa kwa Facebook. Unanipata? And I can relate to that habit because when we used to plan our tanga politics in Karen, 90% of the time the guy alikuwa anakanga hivi tu akiangalia. Unashanga ana point ama haelewi hizi vitu. Unanipata? So ikishapangwa tu mwisho za ile imeiva, tunaenda sasa twendeni Githurai tukaongee. Basi yeye atapanda juu ya gari.
achape.
Wale serious politicians wapewe time waongee juu ya GMR, waongee juu ya manifesto yetu, zile vitu tunataka kufanye. Sasa yeye ambwe zile rafu za kutukana Uhuru na nini, hizo ndio points zako. Unaona? So
Na badali tusihuru
sasa nikiona ati huyo ndio mtu mla tuambia atapanga. Hai, bila cheka sana. Ni kama juzi tena nimepatana na jana, actually it was yesterday. Nilipata na MP mwingine wa Wiper, a friend of mine. Kaniambia raundi hii mtatuona. Kwa nini? Ile pesa Rigiji aliwafund nayo. Raundi alaekelea kwa Kalonzo. Nilicheka. I can tell you straight in the eye, na hata yeye anajua hii ni ukweli. Huyo jamaa kwa iweka hata bob 1 shilling. Even the day he was named running mate, asubuhi alikuwa anaamka, anapata ndege na doi iko hapo. Yeye anaenda anaongea, anarudi. Hiyo ndege italipwa na nani? Hajui. Hii pesa imetoka wapi? Hajui. Baka kampeni kaisha. Unajua yeye alikuwa na ka one line na kingine kazuri sana. Mlikuwa hata mkienda kunywa chai mahali tu anakuambia senator utalipa hii bill. Unajua mimi anakuambia unajua sikia. Anakuambia unajua mimi ningelipa lakini Uhuru amefunga account. So yani mimi nikiangalia hii watu wanatuambia ati huyu mtu anaweza put together coalition.
ati endo alifund campaign za Ruto inakonga jaba.
Hata Bob ile si story ya jaba. Ile sasa ni bangi yenyewe.
Sawajagoya.
Unajua jaba inakuwa within realms of reality. Hii ni bangi kabisa.
Hapa tunaribia ngoi.
Sasa unajua so nikiangalia ati mnatuambia huyu sijui even ku consolidate Mount if Uhuru serving as a president. Huyu ni mtu pedigree. Ni leader.
Class.
Ana watu wanamfuata. He had very serious following in that particular part of the country.
Historical pedigree.
Unanipata? Na kaheshima fulani ni serving president. Kuna vile alijaribu kupanga hiyo watu na ikashindikana. Unaniambia huyu atapanga watu.
Kuna kwanga na hii theory yenye wasau believe na inaonekana nika ukweli that uko mlima ni the ground inaambianga mwanasiasa vile ataenda rather than yeye kuambia.
Partly, but also people respond to something.
True. They have to be
Kama UDA walikuwa wanasikia kuna plan fiti hapa. Hii vitu anaongelea affordable housing, anaongelea juu ya GMR, sisi ni farmers. Unanipata? Anaongelea juu ya economy, we are a business community and the things that we do. So these are things that matter to us. Yes. That is what they responded to more. Unaona hii sababu by the way hao wanafanya, si ni BBI tu all of a sudden. Kwani BBI ilikuanga nini? BBI ilikuanga built on regional kingpins. Unanipata? Wewe ulikuwa ulete Waluya, mimi nilete Wajaluo, sijui nani alete nani. Hesabu zingine za upuzi sana. Those are the same calculations inafanywa saa hii. Ati mimi nitaongelesha watu fulani, wewe kuja na wako na wewe kuja. That's why his mind has never moved from that. I can tell you what I know for a fact. That nowadays, even more than ever, despite wajana na hii hate and social media activity na story zinaongelewa kuhusu, people will still respond to the issues that you're speaking to and the plan that you have for them more than any other. Unajua kuwa president, unakumbuka election ya 2022? 14 million plus people voted. Do you know what it means for 7 million Kenyans to wake up in the morning and go and put a decision and say, nimekubali Denzel ndiye atuongoze nchi? It's not a simple decision as if it wanafanya. Ati kwenda, unajua wanaenda kila center.
It comes from the heart.
There is a lot more. But I can't blame him because he can't understand, he can't appreciate. Hata yeye alistuka tu hapo. the only mistake unajua naweza sema ilifanyika, there is a class of leaders I still celebrate up to date, and even now more than ever. Unajua 2022 ukikumbuka the 72 hours of siege in Karen, when Kenya Kwanza was struggling to make the decision on who becomes running mate. 90% ya Mount Kenya leaders wale walikuwa side yetu at that time, for 3 consecutive days stuck to their guns and told President William Ruto, please, running mate, not this guy. Unanipata? Nafikiri alikuwa anapata kura kaa 3 ama 4 peke yake. Jane Kiara, Kimani Ngujiri huyo Bahati, I think na Ndindi.
Ndindi Nyoro.
I think maybe 4 votes at most. Alikuwa apiti 5.
Tulikuwa naambiwa juzi Waiguru alikuwa anamchafua mbaya.
Waiguru was slightly ahead of him, lakini the person who led the pack like by a country mile was Kidiki all the time. Alikuwa anapata 70 to 80% of the vote. Kuna kitu hawa leaders walikuwa wanajua, which now the country is getting to see, that this is not a leader ripe for such a position. Uni jamaa amesa parliament, there is no even record. Mayona clip ya huyu jamaa akiongea parliament for the 5 years.
Jaba.
So there is
no the definition of one term.
Unanipata? No, si yeye mwenyewe ndio one term.
Yendo one term.
Unanipata? So kuna kitu hao leaders waliona, which the country is now getting to see. Even today, that's why during the impeachment, still 75% of leaders from that region voted to impeach him consciously.
Ilianza na wao.
And they're the ones who said, the way this guy is driving us, atatupoteza. Na kuna kitu wanaona mpaka saa hii. Unanipata? Ni vile huyu jamaa, that's why the guy is unleashing violence on leaders who don't agree with him. Hii maandamano unaona hiyo region, si maandamano. It's almost like back to the day of conscription. Yenye kama wewe utusupport, most of these biashara zinavunjwa, si biashara tu za mtu yoyote, ni biashara za watu who don't support this kind of politics. Unanipata? The leaders whose homes are being targeted are the leaders who don't agree with this kind of politics. So, if I cannot persuade you, why should I resort to that kind of practice? The thing is, I feel the leaders from that region hawajapewa opportunity proper ku-explain because of this kind of vigilante politics that is being played. Usipoongea nini. Alafu unajua imechanganyana na emotion. Hii ni government iko kwa it's stadia. Any government, by the way. The time nikikam parliament, 2015 hiyo tukiingia campaign, Uru's government was at its lowest. Because he was just on its second year going to its third year. Rift Valley, where I come from, Kericho, the bedrock it was a bedrock of a Jubilee administration. But do you know how much I scored in that election? I only got 65%. 35 voted for Kanu, which was considered then to be the message they were driving is against the government. But by 2017, when we went to the election, Jubilee scored 99% of the vote. What does that tell you? What point am I making? The fact that midway through any administration, especially in its first term, it is normal for approvals to be at that level because kuna vitu mmepromise, you are still struggling now to fulfill them. Watu hawajaona. Move around the country. Like that time, the message was, tuliwapigia, mlikuja hapa mkatuambia tuwapigie, wapi barabara, wapi nini. That's the time hizo vitu zikaanza kukua hastened. But it's not to say that there was no plan to do them. Ilipata tu, saa hiyo ndio planning imeachwa and people get impatient. But it didn't mean that by 2017, those guys were going to vote towards the opposition. They still voted 99% for Uhuru Kenyatta, Jubilee. So, you can't use the sentiments ya saa hii to say how 2027 election will go. You'll have to be politically naive to imagine that any strong formation has taken shape as of now.
Advice. Coming to you. What is the danger of opposition in Kenya taking vigilante politics as its main brand of politics?
It is extremely dangerous. And you know, this gentleman said that the government had sponsored goons. And at one point, there was the conversation that the goons who are spoiling things are government sponsored. Now, when government arrested people, again, there was a complaint from the same opposition leaders led by Rigathi Gachagua that why are you now sentencing our children? And my question became, if government sponsored goons and it's now accusing them of terrorism, why are you unhappy? If those are government people and it's government again that is accusing them, you should be happy that government is punishing its own people. Awaseni wa gava na ni gava inawapunish. So you see, the problem is, most of the reason the people should understand that most of these political leaders, they speak from both ends of their mouth. They say what favors them at a particular time. Mi ushinda nikirudia nikiambia wase, unajua this Rigathi Gachagua stood for over 2 hours kwa TV. He almost cried, convincing us and parliament and the president that tafadhali muniache nibaki kwa serikali. Then when he is now out, he's telling us if there is a bad place on this earth, is being inside that government. How did it become bad? Because you are now outside. But at the point when you are about to get out, you really pleaded that you remain in. So that's why I keep advocating that we must be objective, na tuangalie hizi vitu with both eyes. We must be able to read deeper. Let us not allow someone misuse our emotions. And that is what we do. When we allow our emotions to be misused, ndio vigilante politics inaingia. Because somebody wants to radicalize you. Now, the only way you can radicalize someone, it is very hard to radicalize people when it's about an agenda. And that's why you must look for something petty. Radicalization is done only using pettiness. For instance, you use a tribe and say, you know what, sisi tuko huku na hawale wako huko. Unaona? That simple, and then you radicalize people. Sisi ni watu wa hii community na wale ni wale watu wa hiyo community ingine ndio abu tunaumia. Then you radicalize people. Now that is what some of these people are doing, and that's why every time you ask them, why do you want to be in government? Why do you want to form government? Most of them, they don't have an answer. Why? Because it is very hard politics to do, and it cannot amount to radicalization. Most of them, they want the cheap nature of the politics, tribe and such kind of petty issues. Sisi, we are the ones who hold the economy of Kenya. Very small petty issues. And those ones now are easy to use to radicalize young people. And that's why we must keep speaking against some of these things. Ndio vijana wajue, most of these guys hawana kitu yote wanataka kukusho. And most of the time when they come to you, ask them, what is the alternative? What are you offering? Ndio tujue, hii unemployment crisis tunaisolve aje. Hii health challenge tunaisolve aje. It is very hard to radicalize people using real issues. And young people should not accept that kind of thing. Hiyo radicalization ni kutumiwa tu as a young person kuserve interests za mwanasiasa mwenye, and you know, it's very dangerous to be in a cocoon of politics where your support base is anchored on a person who cannot take you to the next level because the person cannot run. So you wonder, why are you wasting your time there? Yeah, because the person can actually take you nowhere. So lazima to speak against these things. Ndio vijana wajue, ukisikiza kila mwanasiasa sahi. Na ndo nasema tukienda 2027 election, we must be able to look at every politician for what they are offering. And we must be objective. Lazima watuambie, what exactly are you able to offer? Ndio tusikuwe na hii kitu yenye Mwesha anatuambia hapa, yenye anatuambia Rigiji alikuwa anakaa angoje zile points za kulima. You know, we should never get to such a point again. And you see, that simply means, apart from Rigiji, there are many others. We have others in parliament. We have others at the Senate. We have others at the governor level who their only claim to glory ni hiyo aspect at yao walikuwa na point za kulima. So the more we become politically active na tujielewe, ndio tutadua with such kind of things, and then we'll start discussing our politics for the real issues that it should be.
Speaking about radicalization of Gen Z, tumesikia Rigiji akiuko majua anaongea about atiata team up na Gen Z, and he talks about it in a kind of militarization of the movement. What is the danger of, juu tumekuwa tukiongea about blood economy for a long time. What is the danger of just allowing such leaders when you hawana kiti sahi to engage in such talk?
I think listening to what the senator has said, I think we're giving too much credit to Rigiji. I think Kenyans are intelligent enough to make a decision. And we've given an example of the first Gen Z protest, the real Gen Z protest, though there were some issues which were not on that finance bill that they were agitated about, but they were actually dealing with issues, and they were able to chase those who wanted to joyride on their movement. You remember they say they are leaderless, they don't have a tribe, tribeless. So Gen Z knows what to do. And if you look at the Sabasaba, Maandamano, and the other 25th, most of the parts of the country were peaceful. It does not mean those areas had no Gen Zs, for example. So to him, he's an opportunist. Gen Z had a movement. They were agitated on certain issues. Now he wants to ride on the Gen Z agenda. He's not the one controlling the Gen Zs. Yeah.
So how does the country then move from this moodier tribalism? How do we move back to nationalism? Because coming from pale 2022 election, the country really was in a sense of hata wenye wame lose na wenye wameshinda, it was like freedom is we finally gone over the cliff. Tumeingia hiyo level ingine. How do we get back there?
You know, in most spheres of our lives in Kenya, we've gone beyond tribalism. We were left with only two areas of marriage and politics. So the ones for marriage, we've conquered. There's a lot of intermarriages in Kenya. And some people, including myself, have kids from different tribes. They cannot be... So all the other facets of life, uulizi dereva ni kabila gani ndo upande matatu, ama ukiwa mgonjwa upeleke hospitali uulizi daktari ni kabila gani ndo anitibu, ama ukienda kwa duka uulizi shopkeeper. So most areas we faced. Now the one remaining is a political tribalism, of which it has been the main avenue of mobilization in our politics. And there's no silver bullet to deal with that issue. But I think the more we urbanize, the more we live in cities, the more we interact with different community, the more that thing will end. Moi tried to build national schools. You know, kitambo ulikuwa unasomea Geshagi, primary, secondary, high school, au juu kuna kabila ingine inaendelea. In fact, the first time nilisikia the term Kalenjin was in, I think, 2001. Nilikuja Nakuru. Nilikuwa nadhania wote ni Wanandi. I was in Eldoret, so we used to call all of them. So kuna vitu sikuwa najua. So but ukiinteract, na the more we interact, the more universities zimekuwa mingi, watu wanasoma mbali na kwao, the more these things zitaisha. So I give it time. Urbanization, most kwenye tuko na 50 cities, 60 cities, that thing will be a thing of the past.
So diagnosing the country, President Museveni ushinda kituambia, what do you think should be our national priorities right now? And that question will come to us.
I don't think I can speak on behalf of the Kenyans, but there's one thing in the previous podcast that Advice said. See, whatever the case, whether tuende juu, tupigane aje, tufanye nini, the only solution will come when you sit down and talk. So, sina solution ya kila mtu, but we can come to a table, to a conversation, and decide what's the best way for Kenya.
Advice, what should be our priorities?
I think I would say our biggest priority as a country today should be to spend a lot of time delving deeper into being more objective than emotional. Most of the reason we are where we are today is because we have chosen to be more emotional than objective. We need to understand that emotions will only serve us for a short time. Most of the reason why we have made political mistakes over the years since independence is because every time we have gone to the ballot, we have gone more with our emotions than with our reason. So for me, the biggest priority for us today should be to be more objective. And when we become objective, we should be able to look at, for instance, what did your leader promise? What is the leader delivering? Not what are you emotional about? If we're looking at the government, for national government, for instance, let us be able to analyze. This was the plan that this Kenya Kwanza administration promised. They promised affordable housing. What have they done so far? How many jobs have they been able to create through that housing? They promised universal healthcare. how far are we on the matter of universal healthcare? What are they doing on the matter of unemployment? What are they doing in terms of digitalization? So that we start analyzing and placing judgment on the basis of facts, not on the basis of what a politician is telling us about the government. So that when we're making our decisions, we are making informed decisions. And that should cascade downwards up to the governors. By the way, there is this thing called the governors that we keep forgetting. This animal called the governors and the county governments. The pressure that we have put on national government should be able to be, we should put that pressure equally to county governments, because some of these governors, they're just sitting pretty, but when you follow up, you will discover there's actually nothing happening. I've gone to some of these county headquarters where from the reception of the county, you find the receptionist anashuka nywele ya mwingine, like they have turned it into a salon. It's a small salon at the reception of a county headquarter. Like there's nothing really going on. I have people who work for county governments out here, that someone works for a county government in, this is just an example, works in Bomet. But the person is perennially here in Nairobi. So I wonder, at what point do these people even work at the end of the day? So we must be able to take that hit back to that county government. And we must also take that hit to the different institutions in their independence. So that when we talk about the judiciary, let us task the judiciary to give us answers about the judiciary. When talking about independent institutions, the IEBCs and all those, let us task them to give us answers for those specific things. So for me, the biggest priority for us, especially we as the people, is that we must start being objective and have more reason than emotions guiding our decision making.
Senator, priorities za nchi tunafaa kuwa wapi?
In a leadership must respond to the needs of its people. The bigger problem we have sahi is where we are. Unaona hapa Nairobi, hapa ndio shida zetu za Kenya ziko.
Beat the record of some administration in their first term, the record that was set. Why? Because as we speak today, every facet of the economy is doing better than what it was prior to William Ruto taking the reins of power. You will never hear that in mainstream media, because they're also looking for money, and hate sells. This cheap publicity ambaye tumezoea kama wa Kenya are the things that excite people. Half of these people who are in newsrooms and the things that they're talking about, they're not journalists left anymore. Hawa tu ni, yani, I don't know. Hakuna tofauti yao na wale watu ongea. Maybe, sitaki kusema mahali mtu aone kama ninawa compare with the worst. Unanipata? Because, speak about education. Where were we? Universities were all nearly bankrupt. All of them, they couldn't pay salaries. There was no learning going on. There were lecturers strike every other day. Do you still hear of those stories? Watu walipiga kelele hapa mambo ya funding model na nini. But difficult decisions had to be made. We were lying to ourselves that we could sustain keeping university students in campus while we didn't have the cash flow to support. So we just had to do the adult thing of saying it is not possible to pay for everyone a certain amount. Kama unaweza afford, pambana naye. Kama uwezi, it's the same situation. How many of us today, ukikumbuka during my time, maybe I may have wanted a better career or a better education than what I got. But I had to take that which my father afforded. Right from primary to high school to university. Me, I went through public schools all through because that's what my parents could afford. Why should it be any different in a government setup? Teachers, how many, what was the student to pupil ratio? Quite significant. How is that being addressed? It's being addressed by continuous employment. As we speak today, by December, William Ruto's government will have employed 100,000 teachers. So out of 400,000 teachers, the total teacher population, a quarter will have been employed by an administration that we are being told has failed. That's just education. You speak about health. Our public health infrastructure had collapsed. We were lying to ourselves that we have a national scheme here called the NHIF, which will take 10 to 15 months to pay and remit payments to counties. As we speak today, every month before the 10th, our public institutions have their compensation from SHA. That is a lifeline that will eventually ensure that we have public institutions, public hospitals that can respond to the needs of their citizens. You can speak about agriculture. People are selling their milk at 35 shillings. Now it's 50. You know, we were importing no less than 1 million metric tons of sugar. As we speak today, we have grown that deficit, and we have actually reduced it by ensuring that we double our production from 450,000 to almost 900,000. That's our farmers. Yani ni pesa tungekuwa tumechukua hapa, tukapatia mwanabiashara import sukari kutoka Brazil. Iyo pesa sahi, because ya subsidy and the things that are being done, iko kwa mfuko ya mkulima in the western part of the country, you know, where they grow sugarcane. And so many other things that we can say. Those are the things that will inform and will make the final decision when somebody goes to cast their vote. Unaona hizi story tunaongea hapa, unajua watu kitu moja wajui, politics inakuanga entertainment. Ni kama Man U versus Arsenal. Watu hawajui hiyo. The things we talk about, nikienda town nitapata crowd, the next person akienda atapata crowd, and they'll cheer, they'll be excited. Oh ay, kumbe huyu ni Aaron Cheruiyot, ala kumbe jamaa anakanga hivi nini. The next person will come, but eventually jioni ikishafika 5, wanasiasa wakishatoka, wananchi ukaa sasa pamoja peke yao, wanasema hebu tu reason sasa, huyu anatuambia nini? Some of these people tunaambiwa watashindana na William Ruto. Wewe unajua hata topic moja wanaweza cover for 10 minutes. Patia Kalonzo sasa, mwambie talk about agriculture in Kenya. What will Kalonzo tell you? You know, mwambie speak about agriculture. Wewe mwae musikia. Patia huyu Rigiji topic ya public health, mwambie sawa, umesema SHA ni mbaya because of this. Please give us a solution. How you'll make sure that citizens access healthcare in our institutions. Anaweza ongea hata dakika 2. So you want to tell me that people are so reckless to the point that unajua, in fact, William Ruto anafanya makosa moja. He keeps telling them what they are not doing right. It is not his business. Mbona anawaambia hamna agenda? Shida ya William Ruto, mara mingi akifacing opponents wake, anawarevilianga vile hiyo mtihani most likely itaenda. If you remember, in the run-up to 2022 election, he kept on warning these guys and telling you, by the way, I will beat you. And the reason I'll beat you is because these things you're talking about, regional kingpins, don't make sense. The conversation is about the economy. Unanipata, in the talks that he used to have pale Karen, hawakusikia. The same case anaambia hao mafala wasai wanashindana na yeye. Hamwambii watu kitu, lakini hawasikii. Mimi nataka nimwambie wewe, kwani wewe ulitumwa kazi yako tu ni kuchanua opponents wako? Wacha waendelee kuongea ujinga wanaongea. Wewe unataka kuniambia ati kuna mtu atapiga kura sababu kuna mtu amekuja Nakuru town akasema one term, mwizi, muuaji, jamaa ameenda, and you think that guy will just come and vote for you? Kwani watu ubeba watu wajinga aje?
One time. I'll say this to our young people. Again, don't be convenient fools or useful idiots. When you're fighting for a cause, keep to the cause. Let nobody hijack your cause for their selfish gain. Hawa wanasiasa, umesikia Rigathi amesema sasa yeye ndo anaambia Gen Z direction wataenda. That was not the agenda. In fact, after the president last year 2024 alikataa kusign the finance bill, na agitation ilikuwa finance bill, whoever went ahead na maandamano hakuwa genuine, anataka finance bill was the problem. So there are people settling scores. Na kuna watu kama hawa activist. After maandamano, hao wanaenda wanaandika donor report, wanapewa funds, wanaenda nyumbani, wako na chakula. Wewe ulifunga kazi yako, ama umeharibia mwenzako biashara, unaenda nyumbani kwa wifi yako nyumbani, unasema you fight. Umepigania nchi, wewe ni mzalendo. But hauweki agenda yako kwa meza. kumekuwa na watu wengi wamepigania nchi, but walikuwa wanapigania something useful. Babu zetu walipigania hii freedom, hii independence from wabeberu, waka succeed. Kina Orengo, kina Raila wakakuja second liberation, kupigania political freedom, of which that time katiba hata haikuwa inapea freedom. Kenya was not a democracy, it was a one party state. Waka succeed, kukakuwa na agitation hiyo ya new constitution, we came up with a constitution. So kulikuwa na agenda enye ilikuwa ina move Kenya forward. Yani whatever they were agitating for na wameipata, imetusaidia Kenya kuprogress. Hata hii freedom enye iko sahi, kitambo tulikuwa tunaambiwa ukitaja Moi tu hivi maneno yako kwisha. So the freedom enye iko sahi to protect at all cost through elections, because hakuna shortcut. Because Denzel ukileta watu 1 million kwa street uchukue serikali, kesho pia mimi naweza leta 1 million street nichukue serikali, na instability kila mtu ataumia. Hivyo ndo Sudan iko, ndo ilianza, hivyo ndo Somali iko, hivyo ndo Kongo iko. So hiyo sako itaumiza watu wengi zaidi. So everybody awajibike, angalie a reason, a make sense, asira iende chini, ukuje kwa reason.
Yeah, I'll say two things. One, I'll pick up from where he has left on the aspect of activism. And I'll tell our young people that up to where this country is today, the gains that we have had in this country from independence to this day have been brought about by activism. The activism that brought about the Sabasabas that we've been commemorating, the activism of Raila Odinga and then people at the time, because it was anchored on issues, it was anchored on something they wanted to change. But to move this country from where we are today going forward, we need more brain work than activism. It is also important for people to understand that maybe not all, but most of the activism that we have today is not anchored on creating change. It is actually a job opportunity. We have people who wake up in the morning and their job, the reason why their source of livelihood is that. And that's why you can be, if you think about some of the activists you know, top of your mind, you would want to ask yourself one question. How come since you knew them, nothing has ever gone right in the country? Because it can never be that bad. It cannot be that since you were born up to today, every time you appear, something is wrong and everything has always been wrong. We must be able to understand that some of these people do this for a living. So as young people, we must be able to know that as we want to join a particular direction, know that some of them are doing it for a living. And lastly, I'll say that weak politicians feed on the ignorance of the masses. And that's why the weaker the politician is, the more ignorant he needs the mass to be. Because when the masses are not ignorant, then he has nothing to sell to them. I'd want to appeal to people and Kenyans at large and all the young people that the more educated, the more we make ourselves have a lot of issues, the more we'll be able to automatically wish away and blow away every weak politician. So let us remember not to be ignorant. Thank you.
If you ask me, what young people need to appreciate is that things are not just the way they are by mistake. It is because of certain decisions that we made as a country. One of those decisions is this particular very wrong belief that leaders alone can fix the country. The average Kenyan politician that you see is the average Kenyan. So there's nothing unique about the politicians that you see. Ukiona politicians wenu vile wanakaa, hivyo ndio nyinyi mko pia. Kwa hivyo, this conversation must be beyond just trying to say we will remove so and put in so and so. That is a mistake that many others have made without any success. It will always be trying to find ways that we can improve on society and ensure that the values that we wish would be the guiding principles of our republic, I begin professing them myself first before even demanding of the same from others. Siwezi kuwa niko chuo, ninaibia cat, nina skive classes, ninafanya hizi vitu zote,
na niko online kwa room saa hiyo nikitype vile we want a better Kenya. Better Kenya inaanzia na wewe kwanza, zile vitu unafanya, zile values una live by. We must be a society that first looks within before looking out. The bigger problem I have is that many times people believe that it is possible for others to first behave in a certain way before now things can get better. Number 2 is that it is good what many people are saying. Oh, we want change, we want this and that to be done. But first, take a pause also and understand Kenya ilifikaje hiyo place. Because if you don't realize how we found ourselves in the same mistake, in the wrong place, you're bound to repeat the same. We must be good students of history, that we used to lock in the gains, zile vitu tunaona we are getting better. To me, society keeps on improving. By the way, nilikuwa naona comments, mtu akasema ati I had said what I said earlier today in this show, kwamba every sector under William Ruto is better than what it was under previous presidents. Akaniambia even the human rights space. Nikamwambia yes. Akaniambia what do you mean? Nikamwambia my friend, we are coming from a time where all dissenters against the regime walikuwa wanasafiri one way, walikuwa wanapatikana River Yala, ama abadeas wanatupwa huko msitu wanakuliwa na wanyama, kama the 2 Indian bloggers wale walikuwa wa timu yetu. Unaona, unanipata? Hao walitupwa abadeas alongside so many other people. As we speak today, first of all, we are conflicting arrests na abductions. Mtu anashikwa inaitwa squeeze, inaitwa abduction, mpaka media. Nimekuambia hakuna journalist tena anymore kwa hizo newsroom. Unaona? That's why people cannot even distinguish between an arrest and an abduction. Inamaanisha the same thing. Mtu anashikwa vizuri, DCI wana issue statement, wanasema tuko na Denzel, wanasema Denzel has been abducted. Nilikuwa naambia mtu, hebu angalia hii scenario ya Boniface Mwangi Tanzania. Imagine, no, that's not the issue. If the government of Kenya had not put its foot down, Boniface Mwangi will never have left Tanzania to come this place. Imagine a government that stands up for its worst and harshest of critics and says, no, that is our citizen, let him come back. Didn't the Ministry of Diaspora do that? Imagine now the same under. Unataka kuniambia ingekuwa time ya Uhuru Kenyatta, Boniface Mwangi wangeweka pressure Boniface Mwangi arudishwe Kenya hii? No, tusidanganyane, tuambiane ukweli. What happened to people like akina Alamin Kimathi the time they were arrested? Unajua alikaa miaka ngapi huko? Unanipata? So people, watu tu wanaongea na kuconflate issues without reflecting. That's what I think they are calling unrighteous anger. Umekuwa too incited, unaongea, but take time to analyze and say what exactly is being said here. Are we in a better place? To me, we are moving towards the better. We may not be where we wanted to be, but certainly we are not where we used to be.